Welcome to the Surrogates Corner with James Mahan. Hello and welcome to the Surrogates Corner with James Mahan. James passionately advocates for surrogates, providing practical legal guidance to surrogates and donors throughout their journeys. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're going to talk about picking the right partner, how to find those red flags, and get some legal tips for a successful match. James, welcome back. Great to see you.
Thanks, Kevin. Always great to be with you.
So the match, the right partner, this is really important stuff here that we're talking about.
It is, and it's something that people generally overlook because parents come in looking for, I want a surrogate, surrogates want to help a family, but then it's which one do we actually work with and go into contract with? And there can be things that we want to think about ahead of time before we just rush into the first available match. It's kind of like dating. You don't necessarily just want to take the first person you run into because that might cause problems later down the road.
Yeah, good analogy. I think we can all relate to that, or most of us can anyway. So from a surrogate's point of view, what do you believe that they should look for legally and personally when deciding if a match feels right?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest issue is probably going to be on the personal side. What kind of match do they want? It could be things as simple as, do I want my IPs to be local to me or in, domestic? If I'm a surrogate in California, am I okay being with a, IP in Texas? There are some cases where the surrogate and the IPs are literally in the same city. That can be great. It can cause additional problems. There are a lot of them that you're going to be matched with where your IPs might be international. They might be multiple time zones, continents away. That itself can just kind of create a different dynamic for how the journey goes and what communications look like. So generally knowing what kind of just feel you want for your journey is important. Legalistically, most of the decision-making and everything else is going to be pretty consistent across the board. But really, do I care if I'm working with a single intended parent versus a couple? Do I want them to be local to me or close enough where they can get to me very quickly or not? Do I care if they're, half of a globe away or not? And sometimes language barriers. So some of the surrogates might get paired up with somebody who's an awesome intended parent, but just has a language barrier. That might mean that you're communicating through an agency or through a case manager or on a group, thread for WhatsApp or Skype or WeChat, whatever the case might be. So those kind of things will just kind of, again, impact how your journey plays out as we go through.
Yeah, I can also see, like, in that situation, it can be a bit overwhelming for a surrogate when they first meet someone and they maybe aren't thinking about all the, you could use the dating analogy again. You're not
Right.
necessarily thinking about all the signs that could be potentially lead to a bad fit. Like, what kind of early red flags, whether it's communication, paperwork, anything else, should a surrogate consider or maybe like pay a little more attention to than they might naturally?
Yeah. So I think one of the first ones is, if you have the general concept of what kind of match you want, then you should see things that are working towards furthering that desired outcome. If you want parents who are either close by or who want to be really involved, if at the very beginning, like, all of your communication is through a third party or through somebody else, and you never are talking to the IP or IPs, they're not meeting with you, they're not doing, group, Zoom calls, whatever, that might give you an indication that this person's more of a, at arm's length kind of a match, as opposed to like being really involved. The same is true on the flip end. If you have IPs who are texting you every single day, 5 times a day, and you haven't even gotten through the match meeting yet, it's only going to get worse. It's like, that's the clingy partner, stage 5 clinger. Like that's what you have moving forward. And it's only going to continue to grow from that point on. So that's things to think about. An interesting case I had not that long ago is also just, what kind of level of control are you okay with? Communication wise, what kind of things do the IPs want to know or be told of? Do they want constant updates all the time? Do they want very specific updates on specific dates? Just to give a feel for, again, a 9-month, 12-month journey, you're going to be involved with this couple or these people. How is that going to play out? Because like I said, the contract phase is usually the honeymoon phase. Mm-hmm. It's generally only downhill from there. Things get more complicated and more, contentious as we get forward towards the end of the pregnancy. So just being aware of what ideal match you want, and then things that are either moving towards that or kind of pushing away from that desired outcome.
So if someone gets matched up, or they go with they're going through the process, and it's suddenly it just seems like it's not a good fit. Maybe there's pressure to move too quickly or whatever there is. Are there legal protections to help the surrogates in those situations?
Yeah, the first biggest one is, don't sign the contract. If you're in that contract phase, and I've seen this. I had a case 2 weeks ago where we had I jokingly tell my surrogates that, like, my My least favorite set of IPs for you are doctors and lawyers, not because I don't like doctors and lawyers, they're amazing people, but doctors tend to have a desire to be very involved in all the medical decisions going on,
Sure.
what tests we do, which again can be fine. Just know that going in. And then lawyers, God bless them. I mean, nobody likes lawyers. It's not our fault, but they tend to be more on the controlling side. The contract is sort of viewed as a straitjacket rather than like guide rails. So that can also be something to be aware of. And if you start seeing things where they want all these tests done, or you have to do all these second opinions, or you have to run everything through them, even stuff that generally we don't make the surrogates get permission for from the IP or IPs, that's kind of stuff to start thinking about. Okay, maybe we want to try and soften this. In this particular match, like we tried to remove some of those restrictions and sort of say, hey, I'll let you know about certain things, but like it doesn't have to be on specific dates of the week or whatever else. And we got the red line back and they had yanked out all the stuff that we changed. And my surrogate was kind of like, well, it's not going to get any better. They basically denied everything we asked for. Like, let's just ask to be rematched, which again, I would much rather do at the contract phase than find that out like 3 months into the pregnancy that we have those problems. So we can definitely do it there. And then the other thing to be aware of is that your contract will have kind of guardrails in place for certain things. Who makes decisions. Even for my doctor IPs, like it usually will say, the IPs understand they're not your doctor. They're not making medical decisions for you. They can have input and all other stuff, but like other people, your medical team are deciding things. And sometimes if it gets a little bit pushy, like we can go to the contract and say, hey, you guys need to pump the brakes a little bit and back up, knowing that your attorney is one going to be there for you and answer those questions and tell you like, hey, we can ask them to pump the brakes. Is a good thing to know. Hopefully the agency or whoever's managing the case for you is also kind of advocating in that way. But if not, feel free to come to me. I mean, realistically, like, whether you're my client or not, because sometimes just looking at the contract, we can find out where can we push back, where can we kind of, create a little bit of space that would be helpful for everybody.
I think when most people think about this process, it makes sense to think about the intended parents sort of interviewing the surrogate. Mm-hmm. But does the surrogate sometimes forget that they can interview the intended parents as well?
I think they do. And it's not that they aren't told it, because a lot of times the idea is it needs to be a mutual match.
Sure.
I have seen, though, where if a surrogate is sitting at an agency and she's been waiting 6 months, 8 months to get matched, and someone comes along and says, hey, I think I like you, they sort of feel like they're the ones who are being interviewed for the job, and that they don't have either any say, or they may not want to like push the IPs away, which again, I can totally sympathize with and understand that, but I don't want my GCs or any GC really rushing into a match because it's been a little while when it may not be a good match for you. And that's where talking to the agency, looking at what other options you have, might be a better idea than just rushing into the first, like I said, the first suitor out there.
Yeah, and to your point, like it does make sense if you've been haven't gotten anything and you're eager to get this process going, it's easy to get frustrated, and once you're frustrated or impatient, maybe even to some degree, and once you hit that's when you settle.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes like for some of my GCs, like this is they're fitting this into an already existing bubbling busy life, and we've got graduations to think of, and we have work things we need. So we have windows that make the most sense. And if we start squeezing those windows, we start feeling rushed. We start feeling kind of anxious and like, let's just go, which again, I get, and we can work with that. But if red flags are popping up, we want to be able to say, nope, this is not the right time. Let's just, wait and resettle when something else comes up.
That's a really good point about the potential surrogates schedule, because there might be something where like, okay, well, I've got this trip planned, or I've got this happening, or this, whatever's going on in the next year to 2 years, you want to make sure that it works within your schedule too.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. What role should the agency play in ensuring the match is healthy and ethically sound? And are they generally very conscious of this?
They tend to be. So the agency wants the matches to go well also.
Sure.
And I would say this is true whether you have an agency or if you're doing an independent match. Like the surrogate really needs to take ownership of what kind of match they want. And a lot of times that's just being very upfront, either with prospective IPs or with the agency. What are your do's and don'ts? What are you must-haves? What would you like to have? And then it becomes like a Venn diagram of what can we kind of create that has like maybe an 85% solution to everything. You're probably not going to find 100% match. Talk to people who are married. Sometimes it's not 100% match. Like you got to go with what we can have, but making sure that you're at least thinking about that. And it's not just, I need somebody to be a carrier for, right? There needs to be more thought to that, both on your side of the GC, because the parents tend to be, critical as to things that they want. And don't be afraid or ashamed or shy to say, hey, this is what I really want. And if you don't have that type of IP or IPs, like I'm willing to wait. long enough or go look somewhere else, but I'm not willing to compromise on these things that I really feel are important.
How do you help the surrogates sort of navigate these early conversations with intended parents, whether it's from a personal side or from a legal lens?
So both. So whenever I get an independent match, my first question is usually like, how did you guys meet? How did we find each other?
Right.
Luckily, we're not running into the issues we had like 10 years ago where I'd be like, I found my surrogate on Craigslist. It's like, oh, no red flags there. So
Oh
that's
boy.
less of a problem. But, it may be a friend of a friend. It may be a coworker. It may be things where usually there's enough of a connection that like they will have found something. I mean, now there are existing platforms that kind of just connect people who are looking for independent matches. And it's almost like its own sub agency that does that, which can be fine. But it's like, okay, well, what if we haven't thought about that process about what we want, what we're looking for, like what do you want? And let's make sure that when we get a contract, because usually what happens for me is I'll get a GC who's either independent or from an agency, and then it's like, hey, I've got a match, I'm ready to go, we're starting legal, their attorney will send you the contract when it's ready. Perfect. Totally normal. Once we get the contract, it becomes like, okay, are there any flags in here, any concerns in here that we want to make sure are okay with you? And sometimes, the agency will have cross-reference those things that they're important to them. My independent reviews tend to be a little bit more like focused on like, have you guys talked about this? Has this come up yet? What's
Right.
our plan if this does happen? Just to make sure that we've thought a little bit more through than just, I like this person, I know them, I want to help them have a baby, so let's go. Because that's kind of what the contract's role is, to make sure that again, those guardrails are in place to prevent us from flying off the cliff, but we also don't want them to be straitjackets where like you can't feel, you feel like you can't move or make any decision because the contract's going to restrict you so much.
Do you have situations where it's the opposite, where a potential surrogate is like maybe trying think like too demanding or too like thinking about that interview, quote unquote, too strongly, where you have to kind of pull them back and say, hey, we do have to kind of compromise on some things here. You're not going to get, like you said, not going to get everything you want and that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a dual way street. Like you're not going to find 100% match. I mean, you can have the big 5, 6 kind of criteria to make sure that we're not dealing with like automatic disqualifiers. But it does. I mean, we talked about this in a prior episode, but a lot of it comes down to gut feel. A lot of it comes down to like, is this the type of person or couple that I feel like I want to do this journey with? And then understanding like if your expectations are unreasonable, then your outcome is going to become disappointing because you're going to find yourself never getting matched or getting matched and having everything fall apart. So you have to be willing to be in that 80 to 90% range and not dead set on 100% of everything you want. So that can be important for the surrogate to know that, it is a give and take, but we want to make sure that we're giving and taking on the things that are kind of flexible and not on those non-negotiables.
Do you have a story you can share where maybe a poor match led to some serious conflict and perhaps what people listening or watching could learn from that?
Yeah, so I mean, usually they will come around. So there's two big issues that I tend to see where these come up, right? Usually middle of the pregnancy when something's going on, and now there becomes a question of I want to travel. They're not comfortable with it. My doctor says everything is okay. Can I do it? I'd rather you not. And it can create things that are sort of just grinding a little bit on the relationship. And sometimes that will come down to like, well, what again does our contract allow us to do? Like, are there certain things that they, as the IP, can say absolutely not to, and are there other ones that they basically just get notification on, and we can kind of work through some of that type of stuff. On the earlier side, usually we'll come down to I feel super rushed. Everyone's trying to go too fast. They're already trying to schedule my transfer. I don't have the contract yet. Things where it's like, hey, we can wait. We can do another cycle. We don't have to do this so fast. And usually for the surrogate, like just knowing like one, you don't have to sign the contract. You don't actually have to do the embryo transfer. Like if you don't feel comfortable with what we're doing, they can't make you get pregnant for them if you don't want to. There may be some contractual ramifications about reimbursing certain costs if we do walk away and we've never done a single transfer. But there are ways that the contract is designed to protect both sides from getting into something that neither party wants. Knowing that, again, you have the ability to get those questions answered and that information to you is critical. But just understanding that it is in there usually. So go ask your attorney or come ask me for those type of things that might be coming up. Because, little stuff is usually pretty easy to deal with. Big issues, we want to make sure that we have like that kind of contractual basis and bolstering for us to make sure that we're making the right arguments about what we do or don't want to do.
You mentioned earlier that one of your first questions is how did you guys meet? If you have like an independent kind of thing, are there what else do you look at, whether it's an agency or not an agency, when someone first comes to you, where you say, maybe something that you ask everybody that you think is very important?
So, I mean, one of the big ones is, if I don't know how they got matched, then that's usually my first kind of, it's kind of like, how'd you meet your spouse?
Sure.
We just want to make sure you're kind of just curious as to like what that's going to look like for you. When it's through an agency and through things where there's kind of a guided match in many ways, usually my questions are, is there anything that you feel like you didn't tell your agency that you want me to know when we do our contract? So is there stuff you're like, oh, I didn't really think about restrictions I want on termination, or things I'm comfortable with, or not wanting to do an induction or C-section, or different stuff that, sometimes the surrogate's not thinking of at the matching phase, because that's usually like, do I want my IPs to be here or there, or one or two, or, whatever else, kind of big picture stuff, which again is fine. But that helps me know, like, is there anything I need to be aware of? So as I go through your contract, I can point out things that maybe we want to soften or just remove completely. So it's also oftentimes a help for me to know what I should be flagging that are not just my like normal flags.
How do you guide first-time surrogates in setting boundaries, with confidence, with kindness? Because I think I could see that being a very tough spot especially for a brand new first-time surrogate to really think about what their boundaries are and how to set those properly.
Yeah, and this does come up a lot. I mean, the vast majority of my surrogates are amazing people. They're angels in my book. They want to help this family have a baby. They want them to have a good experience, all of which is great. And that usually will get to me like, hey, this is just starting to get a little bit weird, or like, I'm not feeling comfortable with this. Like, what should I do? And usually, I mean, most of the agencies that people have like licensed mental health professionals, like psychologists and psychiatrists who deal specifically with surrogacy. They're a great place to do like a joint counseling session together, or just hey, what's going on? Let's talk our way through that. Let's make sure that we're all kind of on the same page. That can be a great resource for the match, not just for the GC. And then if that starts to not work and we start getting into kind of really pushy situations, or something where you feel like I'm being either, overrun or not bullied, but kind of pushed in a direction that I'm not sure I'm comfortable with, that's when I say, go to your attorney, get the legal help that you need to figure out, because sometimes the surrogates don't want to be the one pushing back. And I totally get that.
I totally get that. Yeah, they don't want to make a contentious
relationship. Like, go to the attorneys.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like the IP is pushing you a little bit, I can ask them like, hey, let's direct communication that's about the contract through us, the attorney side, so that we make sure we're on the same page, and it's not, your client talking to my client directly about things that now are starting to feel kind of awkward for everybody. So we like to kind of minimize that. I mean, the stuff about, hey, appointments are coming up or baby's kicking, like the normal communication is fine. But if you feel like things are starting to get heated, like, don't be afraid to ask agency to step in or the attorneys to step in and just kind of help, guide the process or guide the communications, so that the surrogate doesn't feel like it's either they're super mad at me and I did everything wrong, or I feel terrible about saying like, no, I don't want to do that. Sometimes just knowing that you're not making an unreasonable request is helpful. And usually that's kind of what our role as professionals are, is to say, you're totally within your rights and within your bounds, to say like, this is not cool. So just having that kind of backup and affirmation, especially as a first-time GC. Also, other GCs, great resource. So a lot of the agencies will have support group meetings and kind of things inside the agency where you can talk to other GCs, some who are second, third-time GCs, and ask them like, is this normal? Like, did you guys have this happen? So again, it's just that finding out like, am I the aberration or not? And there are a lot of resources out there to help you figure that out. If you do feel like you are the aberration, like you're the one asking for something really weird or kind of unique, talk to your case manager, talk to your attorney, and we can figure out, to do an amendment or something else that we can, make everyone okay with that about. But there's availability and resources out there for them to use.
Well, great advice as always, James. Thank you for tuning into the Surrogates Corner with James Mahan. To connect with James, visit surrogatescorner.com, and please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, share it with people who could use the tips. We got lots more stuff coming your way. James, so great to see you as always. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.